So, uh, very warm welcome to all of you, and especially to Maha Energy. I have the CFO, Guilherme de Campos, and I excuse my poor Portuguese in pronouncing the name, but
It was good.
very happy to have you here, and a warm welcome to you listening. We'll have a short presentation, and then I'll come back with some Q&A.
Sounds good.
Over to you.
Okay, it's my pleasure to be here. Good afternoon to everybody. Maha is an oil company listed in Sweden. I'm going to present the latest developments of the company, some details of our operations across the world, and then answer some questions. Really glad to be here, so hope you like it. So Maha has operations in Oman, in United States, in Brazil. We are listed here in Sweden, and we have an office in Calgary, where our subsurface and technical team stays. And this last few months has been a very busy and very interesting period for the company, so we are really excited to be here and to present the latest developments for you guys. We concluded in 28th of January the farm out of 35% work interest of our block 70 in Oman. So this block is under development. We are in an appraisal phase, and hopefully going to bring the project forward in the next few months. I'm going to go into the latest detail. We just released a press release about the first results of the tests we have done with the first wells drilled there. We have a new certification of reserve issued in February, so everything updated. And we closed the transaction selling our Brazilian asset in February for a consideration of up to $186 million. This is going to be paid in installments. We already have $110 million in cash at the bank, and we are expecting to get more money in the coming months. I'm going to present a few more details as well. I've been appointed CFO in March. I was with Maha since January. I'm living in Oman, looking very close to our investment in the region. And we also have a new chief legal officer to improve the governance of the company and prepare for next steps. So we're really making an effort to improve governance and the Maha's team. We started production in Oman in 10th of March. Really big milestone for the company. We have this project started in 2020, and we drilled the first 8 production wells in 22 and early 23. And now we've started testing. I'm going to share a little bit more. We have announced a merger with DBO, a Norwegian oil company. This merger was concluded this week, so we are happy to have DBO and Maha merged now, and with a really strong balance sheet and really strong assets going forward. And we have new certifications of reserves for Papa-Terra and Peroá, the 2 fields that DBO has in Brazil, so that it increases our reserves and our production going forward, and the closing of the DBO transaction that just happened this week. So a lot of things going on. I came from Starboard. Starboard is the new reference shareholder of Maha. Starboard acquired a controlling position September last year, and since then I started to implement this new strategy that we believe is very accretive for the shareholders, including Starboard, but for every one of us. So what those transactions and steps we have taken means. We combined it with DBO issuing new shares, so there was a zero cash transaction, so very good for our balance sheet. This is bringing a very good production asset at a really attractive multiple. We transacted at an NPV to reserves of 0.2. It's a very low multiple, so very cheap acquisition, and it's bringing a lot of reserves up to 18 million barrels for the assets, so really interesting. In Oman, we have started production, so it's going to bring a good potential for the company going forward. For our US assets, we have been testing the market for those assets. We decided to sell the Lac Ranch. It's a small investment we had there, no production, so there is nothing coming out of the balance sheet with this sale. We expected to close it in the next few weeks. All the deal has already been signed. So a lot of things going on. Our second investment in Illinois, US, we are keeping for the foreseeable future. So that's the latest update on the transactions. What is our production profile in this Q1? We have our Illinois IB asset producing 233 barrels per day. In Q1, it was a little lower than last few quarters, but it's going to be substantially higher next quarter as we integrate Peroá and Papa-Terra clusters. We should have around 1.6 pro forma barrels per 1.6 thousand barrels per day, and increasing in the next few quarters. As for reserves, Oman is just a small reserve right now because we can only book the reserves for the first phase of our agreement to test the fields in the country that expires this year. When we go to commerciality, then we can book the big reserves we have there. We have a lot of contingent resource. I'm going to have a quick highlight later. IB, Peroá, and Papa-Terra, a lot of more resources and reserves, and then contingent resources, and Oman up to 21 million barrels, so much more interesting, but we cannot book as reserves so far, and Peroá has potential to increase going forward as well. This is just a summary of what those reserves and assets mean in terms of valuation. This is really interesting for our shareholders. So we have the reserves and NPV of the assets that we have booked, and then we have additional resources that are not accounted for. If we add up our IB, Oman, and DBO assets, both reserves and NPV, we reach $100 million NPV on a 1P, and up to $237 million in 3P if you are more aggressive or more optimistic on the reserves. And that does not take into account the cash that we have from the proceeds of the sales of the Brazilian assets. So if you put this cash that is up to 186 for the transaction plus earnouts that we are not accounting for, we can have a gross asset value from $300 to $440 million. We have that, so if you discounted that, the company has now been reducing that. We have $42 million in that. So we believe that we have a net asset value that so far is more than the market cap of the company. The market cap is closer to the cash we have. So we believe that the interesting position to be right now, and we are now studying how to deploy this cash going forward to bring even more attractive assets to this portfolio. Our production, comparing previous quarters with this quarter and going forward, we had with the Brazilian asset around 2,300 barrels per day of production. Mostly coming from TA, our main field in Brazil. Since we sold this asset, we remain with Illinois Basin, that is producing 233 barrels per day now. But as we bring the assets, Peroá and Papa-Terra from DBO asset, we will be back to the same level of production we had last year. April production is a good average that we expect going forward. Q1 was a little bit lower because some maintenance that happened in Papa-Terra, but it's not going forward. So we will have approximately the same production we had last year, but now we have $110 million of cash to do transactions, to acquire new assets, and more cash income from the next installments of the transaction. We still have $55 million to receive in August. There is no risk associated with it. It's just a second installment, and we have potential earnouts of $36 million to capture over the next 3 years. Those, of course, depend on some indicators going forward, so that might not happen. But Maha now is a company with approximately the same cash flow generation that we had before, but with double the enterprise value, given all the cash that we have to work for the next few months and hopefully going forward. This is a quick update on Oman. one of the most interesting, curious assets we have. This is block 70. It's right in the middle of the country. We have drilled 11 wells as the program that we committed with the government for the first phase. So we have 4 wells in the Alpha pad, 2 wells in Bravo, 2 wells in Delta pad. We just issued a press release with preliminary results of the testing. All those wells are drilled now, and we are producing them to see what comes out. And we have started with Alpha pad. We have tested the 4 wells. One of those had problems with startup, so we shut it in to come back again. We are trying to test as soon as possible all the wells. The other 3 were encouraging. We had Mafrac 9 producing 300 to 350 barrels per day as we started the well. The others, Mafrac 10 and 8, produced 430 and 600 barrels per day, so encouraging initial productions. The main issue there is that the viscosity of this oil is very high, so it's hard to flow, and the API is low, so it's a heavy oil, from 11 to 13 API. So now we are thinking with different chemical and thermal treatment methods to try to lower the viscosity so that we can start shipping the oil to our third-party processing facility that's going to ship this oil through the main oil pipeline of the country to the port, and then we will be able to sell. It's really challenging, so it's one of the heaviest oils being produced in Oman, and we are working with different partners to find a solution for the short term. For the long term, the idea is always to blend heavy oil with lighter oil so that you can flow it easier, but for that you need massive investments in pipelines and all the infrastructure. That's only possible in the commercial phase, not in this appraisal phase. So we just finished drilling all the wells. On top of the production wells, we've drilled 1 and 2 appraisal wells to test the frontier of the reservoir. That will increase our confidence in the oil in place. We are around 300 million barrels of oil in place. That was going to be updated. And we also had a commitment to drill 1 exploration well in the northern part of the reservoir as a commitment of the EPSA. So good results so far, a lot of things to test, and we will keep focus there to make sure that we get the most out of this asset. I will be still living in Oman to look very careful of this project. Finally, I would like to give a quick update on ESG. Maha has been focused a lot of our efforts in the Brazilian asset, Tiê and Tartaruga fields. We had a lot of good activity going on there, especially to reduce water disposal, so that we recycle all the water, and to use our own gas to generate electricity. So good initiatives for the environment. Unfortunately, we sold the Brazilian asset with all this good thing going on, so we need to replicate that as we add new assets to the portfolio. We had been conducting a lot of initiatives with the community. This asset was in a poor region of Brazil, so we had a really good connection with the community, but again, we need to move that good practice to the next assets. Of course, we're listed in Stockholm. We are audited by Deloitte, so we respect all the best practices of a listed company. And safety is one of the things we are more proud of. We finished the drilling campaign in Oman with 0 accidents and nothing reported, so several years of good safety practices. So with that, I end and open to questions.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's starting by talking about the transactions in Brazil. So you sold off the Maha Brazil for cash.
Yes.
And then you bought, or you made the combination with DBO, paying by shares. So maybe explain a bit, I mean, if I look at the MPV numbers that you put up there and look what you paid, the multiple, as you say, is very low. Why is that? And is it possible to do this again?
Yeah, so that has been the focus of the new management of the company, to find transactions that are accretive to the shareholders. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So when we visualized the opportunity to invest in Maha, was because Maha itself was at a good entry price. So we built almost 20% share controlling position in Maha, so that we could implement the same mentality going forward. We already foresaw that our Brazilian assets had potential synergies with other operators, much more important that they had to Maha. So the potential transaction with PetroReconcavo was already being figured out. Of course, that it took a lot of time to negotiate and conclude that, but that was an opportunity. We sold at 0.8, 0.9 versus the 0.2 that we paid for DBO asset. So we sold the asset at a very good price because of the synergies that this asset had with other operators. And with DBO, it's a Norwegian company. They needed a new partner to keep growing, so they decided to merge, not to sell for a very expensive price their asset, but thinking on the potential to become a partner of Maha and grow with us. And now, with the transaction closed, they have appointed board members at Maha. We are working together with DBO to pursue these new opportunities.
And we'll come back to this in a second, but maybe also look at, maybe you can talk a little bit about the plan. So basically, if you say that April is new base in terms of production, then the production levels is similar to where they were before.
For the shorter,
for Maha Brazil and for the new assets. What does the production profile look like going forward? I mean, how fast is it going to ramp up?
Yeah, so that's interesting because in the new fields we acquired, Papa-Terra and Peroá, Papa-Terra is a FPSO, so the platform is there, and it has the capacity to double the production that we have at this point. So it's not more a matter of investing in the fixed infrastructure, it's a matter of just drilling more wells to connect to the vessel. And also the vessel belongs to the partnership, and so that we don't need to pay daily rates. So it's very cheap to operate now that we own the asset, and it has the capacity to increase up to 80% the current levels of production if we drill more wells and work over the wells we have now. So we can expect in the future to have more production coming, especially from Papa-Terra, without significant investment. Actually, from Maha, it should not require any investment because this asset can finance through its own cash flow and raising that at the asset level. And it's important to say that we have a minority stake, so we are not the operators. So we have a Brazilian partner that is the operator of the asset. So we will probably not need to contribute anymore to the development of the field.
But you will still get access to the cash flow.
Exactly. It's a really high EBITDA and cash flow generating asset. So we should, as soon as we start next month after closing, we will start having cash flow coming from the asset.
And let's talk about the cash that you got from selling Maha Brazil. So
Yes.
you have about $110 million on the books at the moment, with another $55 million coming in August, I think, the second installment that you said. So it's about $160, $170 million. What do you plan to do with these cash, and how do you think about further transactions? You've been talking about making further transactions in Latin America. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Latin America is being a focus from our analysis so far. Maha has a strong pipeline of potential assets that we are evaluating. We have not announced anything, so it will be announced as we have firm commitments. But the idea is to look for producing assets with good reserves, so we are not going to exploration. We are going brownfield, the assets that are already producing with booked reserves, and that has potential to increase both production and value. So we are also looking at low entry multiples, assets that need to have some kind of improvement and has room to improve. So that's the priority, to identify and then do extensive due diligence and simulation to see if we believe Maha can get an interesting share of the asset, not necessarily by 100%, but influencing the future of the asset, and then make sure that it has potential to grow within our portfolio and create more value for shareholders.
And if I look at the price that you paid for Papa-Terra and Peroá, when you bought or you made a combination with DBO, you're talking about 0.2 times NAV. Is it possible to do the same type of transactions again, or was it a one-off because they wanted to take share? What does it look like in the
There's definitely available assets at this level of multiples, a little higher, a little lower, but those are difficult transactions. So what we brought to Maha is this expertise on doing hard transactions. Yeah. So we are tireless going after these hard but to execute but profitable transactions, and to execute that with a lot of focus. So this is the new management way to play. Of course, we need to demonstrate that transaction after transaction, but we spend in stocks, but DBO was like $30 million transaction. Yeah. So for $106 million, $60 million to spend over the next years, we believe we can do some good transactions. Maybe bigger than the one with DBO.
Unfortunately, I think our time is up, and I
Okay.
think there's somebody else who wants to room. But thank you very much for coming here to talk to us, and thank you very much for listening.